recorded so that we can kind of look back on this and take all the information that's going to be kind of students at a later time. And we also have a survey. If you haven't filled out the survey yet, it's hollywoodfringe.org/survey. And we'd love for your feedback there as well. We'll try and kind of go through this as fast as possible. I mean, within reason. And then afterwards, maybe go grab a drink at the Water Bar right down the street. We have some small rules about how this conversation should go. It is a conversation, so we can kind of have some back and forth, but if everybody can try and raise their hand and also state your name and your show before you kind of give your comments. We're going to say positive and constructive. Ideas are better than, or criticism is great, and like problems are great, and ideas of how to make it better are even more helpful. We'll stay on topic. No idea is bad. And we're going to kind of have categories, so if you can kind of listen for the category that your problem is within and try and stick it in like its proper area, that'd be easier than if we're talking about ticketing and all of a sudden you're like, well, my venue, you know. That's it, I think, as far as that, so I guess we can start. First, I want to talk about registration. Thoughts about the ease of registration, pricing and cost, participant communications, and participant support. So let's start with just like your registration process. Good? Easy?
It was easy.
Yeah? Okay. No comments on that? Cool. Pricing and cost, anything that was kind of alarming about that for you guys? No? Cool. What about communications through registration? So when you registered, getting like participant emails, did you have any trouble receiving those or anything like that?
It was pretty smooth.
And
I enjoyed the office hours, so we got to see the people before we started the festival, so that was pretty good.
Sweet. And did you guys ever have to email support at Hollywood Fringe for anything? And was that a good process?
Oh yeah.
Speedy responses?
Always good.
Yeah, it was pretty good.
Especially the math.
That's pretty. Cool. Okay, so then we'll move on to festival marketing as a whole, more about how we market the Fringe rather than individual show marketing. So we want some thoughts on like our existing marketing, ideas for new marketing, and then we'll talk about Fringe TV. But as far as like what we do, things like our outreach into the community through like our pole signs or our festival guide or things like that. Any comments about festival marketing?
I think maybe just it's more about the website because it became such a important kind of tool to drive people back to the site. I'm not sure maybe if there was any sort of like intern that could be done, used to like kind of update the page or maybe, or even if there's any sort of sponsor that could help like kind of overhaul the page because it was just difficult to navigate to find things that I needed to send to people or find for updates or even the news like awards and stuff like that. You know, I ended up just Googling it. So yeah.
You guys can come up and sit up here and do more about that. We're like all take it. Cool. Thank you so much. And then so moving on to like the website stuff, did you guys have like any trouble? You said navigation was a little hard. Navigating between like blog announcements.
Just the updated site too, like finding even like certain updates was just difficult.
Okay. Did anybody else have any problems with our website or anything like related to trying to like our blog that's on there? I know that's how we do a lot of our announcements. We like send out an email that has like a blog post about like, hey, this is our sponsors awards, for example, or hey, this is that. Any other comments about that?
I guess kind of piggybacking off what you're saying, like it was very easy to use as an administrator for my show, like the scenes stuff, like the schedule builder, like that stuff is like awesome, like super clean. I would say where it is difficult was stuff like finding out when the sponsored drink was going to be, when those deadlines, the Twitter chat. Sometimes I was looking at the wrong year and I didn't realize, and so that messed me up a few times. Minor stuff, but just like little things where maybe it'd be a little bit easier to be like, I'm not sure what I would suggest necessarily to fix it. Maybe a different color scheme or something for each year, just so we can know, like, oh, this is blue. I know that was 2019 or something like that. Just to give us a little bit of like a easy indicator. Because that was really, all things considered, it's a pretty really well done website, particularly on my end as a producer. But there were some things I could definitely see someone, like my family members, who were trying to find something maybe having a little difficulty.
Just to back, yeah, I meant like the actual admin for the pages for our shows were, yeah, that worked great. That was fine, and I'm so quick and instantly have to.
Okay.
So also connected with this, a lot of times, like if I was trying to find office hours, like where it was going to be or whatever, I would go to my email or actually going to Google and saying Fringe office hours to bring to the page rather than going to the home page and knowing where that was going to be located. By the way, some of that could be me. So I'll totally admit that some of that might be me.
Well, also because sometimes like the blog post might get a little buried with other
and where things are, yeah. And I think there's, and this is completely if this is something that's interesting, I know a lot of Facebook groups spring up about the Hollywood Fringe Festival. And I don't know if that's one of those things whether it's the kind of thing you want on the page, but how can you talk to one another on the page? Are there chat groups? Are there rooms? Are there this? Can you connect with people? And because the messaging system works great, especially when it gets jumped to a Gmail and everything. But it might be an interesting experiment to try to make the Hollywood Fringe site some of that as well.
Okay.
Possibly.
Cool.
Yeah, we have a comment about the groups on Facebook. I actually got acquainted with a few people during the office hours, and we became the Fringer Alliance, which is we still have it as a group. And that actually worked out for me for being a first-time Fringer, getting to know other people that have done Fringe before. And I kind of have emotional support sometimes. It was a little overwhelming, especially with the playbills and the different things that came about during the festival that I didn't know. I never knew about Fringe Central, because there wasn't one this year. But I heard about the things that were happening before in past years. And it would just be like take pictures of the show or support each other's shows. We had a lot of comp tickets exchange. That was great. I got to see a lot of shows because of that. So I think that's a great comment, to have a chat group or a chat on the side maybe, or just do it on Facebook or on Twitter or whatever.
Cool.
That's really good.
Kind of thinking, do you want to talk more websites then?
Well, yeah, just I guess echoing it to a certain extent, but all the information is awesome and out there on the Fringe site. I do think when you know, like, the blog is where everything is, you can eventually find it. And one of the great things about Fringers is we'll make things happen, we'll make it work.
Yeah.
I think what people kind of echoing is the sense of, like, office hours, the next one on the front page, like utilizing that splash zone, that landing page with these information. And then definitely this community sprung up this year. I've seen them in past, like there's always been a Hollywood Fringe 2017 or Hollywood Fringe at LA Theater. We give those sites out for our groups at Asylum, but maybe having something on the main page, either if Fringe has the bandwidth to do their own chat room, which may just be that extra thing, or a link, a portal, where all these other communities. So somebody can go to this page and get, when's the next office hour? What community can I go to? What ticket deals are out there? Instead of them always finding those.
So like outside of our participant packet though. So like outside of that, but more on the website is what
on the website. I mean, the participant packet also tends to come up later after the process. I think something even now, people can be researching and looking and joining Hollywood Fringe 2019.
Okay.
But having a portal, having some central thing, without you guys necessarily having to do a lot of work.
Okay. Yeah, thanks. That's really interesting, and we'll make sure that we talk about it.
There was something kind of to go off of what everyone else was saying. I heard this said to me a few times throughout this year's festival is for the individual things like office hours or parties, it being on the blog and it being easy to find, people still, it's an extra step. So I kind of like bookmark it and would text it to people, the individual links. Is there a way to have something like a Google Calendar where it has all of the specific official Fringe things where people can just go to in office hours, drink about Fringe, dine about Fringe, the parties?
That's great. Yeah.
Especially since we have so many more things that we did it in the past.
Yeah,
you
so
know?
also rather than like me telling people, oh, check out the blog, and then they have to scroll and find it, just go to our Google Calendar, and it'll be there.
Okay.
And if you can import that into your own calendar.
Exactly.
You just make it part of
Apple, so
it.
you
Yeah,
can link it in for
link it in,
that.
it fills, that's great.
Yeah, I know the Broadwater, and I'm sure some of the other theaters do this too, but they had a whole Google Calendar for participants there, and it definitely was helpful because the more harried it gets closer to the thing, like just the end, where the one month could be like, okay, it did get moved, like.
Oh, it's that day, not
Yeah.
that day.
Yeah.
Oh, office hours are on Tuesdays now? I'm just kidding. So going kind of off the website into ticketing, did anybody have any like ticketing issues? So like ease of purchasing a ticket or selling tickets, having trouble with the site or anything?
Not really a problem, but some people bought tickets for one a day, a particular day, and they ended up going to a different day. So that's a little confusing sometimes to keep track of when did they go, because a lot of them were no shows,
Okay.
but they showed up on other days too. So it was really, I don't know, it was just audience was
They
just
can always,
random.
yeah, and if it's like a person that's asking you, they can always email support at Hollywood Fringe to be able to figure that out. So
And
like
some of them bought tickets and never showed, and I was like, oh wow.
yeah.
I actually had to change a lot of the tickets I bought for myself to go see other people's shows, and Dave was incredibly helpful and very quick and responsive on that. There was some weird buggy thing where I think the scheduling reminder or something, like it always blocked me. Oh, whenever you get the update of how did you enjoy that show, that never actually updated to the that you actually went.
Yeah.
And I did miss one show because I thought I had already
Gone.
missed it, or something. So yeah, that's just a weird little buggy thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Anything else with like anything ticketing related? Like selling tickets or anything?
For sure. Sold a few more. That's nothing you can do.
I've never heard somebody say, I wish they sold less.
Actually, just on that note, it kind of ties into the email marketing. Reminded me, there was that email that went out like right after Fringe proper had ended, and like those of us who were lucky enough to get some extensions, like started buying like ads on the site to tell people, hey, we're extended, and then an email blast went out saying, that's it for Fringe. See you next year, and it was basically like the message was don't come to the site for another year. And like for anybody who was trying to promote their extension, that was kind of a killer. So it relied on then just like the Facebook groups and stuff like that to try and get that out. So that was the one thing where it's like where the ticketing and the marketing kind of collided a little bit.
Okay.
Yeah, I've seen it in other Fringe festivals. Where they have, like we had this year, was it June 7th to the 24th, right?
Mm-hmm.
But they have the days, let's say June 7th or whatever, 7th to the 24th. But then they also have the days for the encores too. I've seen it somewhere, I don't know where it was, Edinburgh or San Diego, whatever. They had two different set of days.
Okay.
One for the official Fringe festival, and then the other one for the encores.
Yeah.
So that way people don't think, oh, it's over, and they don't even go back to check.
What about, so kind of that kind of toggles into show marketing. So thoughts on like being able to offer discounts, ways we can help you market your shows. Like that was great comments about making sure that you guys feel supported afterwards, or like having trouble filling seats, things like that, anything like that.
I had trouble filling seats on the encores, and part of it was not being able to offer any discounts on the encores. because I rely a lot on discounts and also comp tickets.
Yeah, that's up to each venue to decide whether or not they can do encore discounts or not. So that's not so much Fringe, but an encore rule that each venue.
Well, for me, that was the one trouble I had getting the seats at the end. Because during the festival, I was able to, pay what you can, or I was able to give offers to people that had other shows too.
Yeah, I heard a lot of anecdotal evidence. I mean, this is my first Fringe. I have nothing to sort of compare to, because I'd only gone to Fringe as a fan.
Mm-hmm.
But I did hear a lot of anecdotal evidence from people saying that they felt that this year there was too many people just basically giving their show away, and that it forced them to then have to lower their prices. And so I heard that from a lot of folks, that they felt like they basically had to keep cutting prices and all that, and that it became kind of a drain for them at a certain point. But it was, I mean, when there's 400 shows and you're all competing for,
And you have the same argument that there's more audience too. So it's kind of both sides of the coin.
Right.
Yeah.
That was something that I heard. But yeah, the only, in terms of the marketing stuff, it really was a great kind of experience to realize what worked and what didn't, and how much of it was just, like, if I were to do this again next year, I know like where it worked and where it didn't, and where to save money on. But so much of it really does come down to like office hours that you can advertise on the site that works to a point, like for that 3-week period, But the encore stuff was tough, the extensions.
Okay. Do you, as far as like, so for show marketing, it kind of ties in, I know that we've mentioned like office hours, like the event marketing, like pre-festival events like office hours or workshops and town halls. Did you guys go to those? Well, I mean, I know you guys went to those. But like, do you have any comments about anything related to that?
Yeah, I think office hours is great. I think that model works. Obviously, I know this year we had the unfortunate thing with like
double the amount of people that we've ever had attending each one, so no way to predict how many people would come to the next one.
Exactly, and that's a good problem to have. Like, I remember we had one show at 3 clubs, and like the inside was packed. I went outside just to get some air, and I ended up talking to like 40 people outside, so it all worked out.
That was the best one.
Yeah, that was it. It works. I do think there used to be. I love when we had the eat this or the Fringe dinners on Thursday. I think we need a few more options like that. There were several ones I had to skip because sometimes I work late on Wednesday nights and I just couldn't make it. And I knew there were some people who literally, it's like, I can't make any office hours unless I call off work. And so it was difficult for them. Less for me, but more just something I've heard from people. So I think even though we don't have to always every week maybe have a Thursday or Friday or Saturday option, just a few more sprinkled in, particularly as the Fringe continues to grow, might put some of the pressure off of you have to be here for office hours, otherwise there's no way you're going to promote your show. That's what we're for you guys.
Has anybody mentioned the effect of not having Fringe Central on the marketing yet?
No, we will. We have a section. We'll talk about that.
Wait, there was a Fringe Central?
The workshops were really crucial to me as the first time when I was just remarking, actually, Matt, that my first ever Fringe thing was literally right here, coming to your seminar, and that was hugely instructive and helpful, and as were the office hours. So and I didn't, knowing that they were, if I couldn't make one, that they would be on the YouTube channel too, was helpful.
Yeah. Talking about Fringe TV, did anybody watch any of our recordings of any of our workshops or town halls to kind of get some ideas from that? And did you watch our other Fringe TV videos, which are extremely helpful too? And do you have any Fringe TV comments?
I love the behind the scenes stuff that you guys started this year.
Like the backstage or the bloopers stuff?
The backstage stuff, picking different shows and doing the backstage and getting to know was really, really cool. And I think that's a neat
We've done that.
Yeah,
for,
so,
like,
yeah, so
Five
we've been doing that since 2013, actually, to some extent.
Oh, okay.
This year was the most episodes we've done. We covered 20 shows in 5 episodes.
Wow.
That's probably why I'm.
Last year we did 3 episodes of
You can feel
4.
free to come and be intimate with us.
This is the staff.
So-
Yeah, get back over there.
So before that, we've only done like at most 12, and this year we covered 20 shows. Yeah, in 5
Well,
episodes.
I was fortunate enough to have to be featured in one of them, and that really helped our next show days. It really drew a lot of audience in, and it was easier to promote our show when we had a highlight on the backstage. That was really a really great tool for us.
So I have a question. Did you find that your Skin Jobs and Oz, did you guys find that your cast was sending those links out, or were they just like, were they marketing that video too?
Before, so they were, frankly, they were relying on me to like market it. I would have to prod everyone and be like, oh no, tell your people about this.
I just want to know if it's
So I think
if it's helpful to your.
I mean, it certainly it was great for them because they felt like I think it helped contextualize for them like we're part of a festival and we're not just our little show showing up for our rehearsals and being in our bubble. Like I knew that the larger scope of it, but I don't think like my actors, my director knew, but like my actors didn't. But so seeing that, saying it to them, they were like, wow, we're really part of this thing. And yeah, I think when we've talked about this, off camera. I think the really hopeful thing might be, headlining on those videos and making it really like giving them a hook to kind of like what happens in this particular episode kind of thing.
Yeah, I think I've been thinking about it because 20 was a lot, and it didn't seem like it. From my perspective, it didn't seem like it was that, like the community was that excited about them. And so I just wonder if like it's worth doing 20 shows, or next year I'm like, well, maybe we just cut back to 3. You know what I mean? 3 episodes.
I want to ask, did anybody do the lightning round too? Because that's like a very easy way for you to get your show on TV.
Wait, the lightning round was
Yeah,
that?
you did it,
Oh, yeah.
and traffic.
I did the last 2 years.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah.
And with that event, was that like smooth? Would you do like 2 days? Would that be easier if we shot it over 2 days? Or
I thought the event itself was seamless. I thought it went really well. It was, the video that subsequently comes from that is more of a pushing of the entire festival.
Yeah.
As opposed because our individual things go by in like 2 seconds. So it's more of like, I mean, that's fine. It's actually great because it helps. It's another thing to publicize and use, but it's more of a public. It's more publicizing the actual festival itself. So in and of itself, I thought those 2 days were great. I thought this year was even better than last year in terms of how fast everything went.
That's interesting because we actually had half the number of people show up this year for lightning round.
Yeah, what was that? Because I thought it was going to be crazy.
Yeah,
like
we all.
last year.
Well, see, look, I had 100 people respond to the backstage, and I was like, wow, 100 shows. They're all going to come to lightning round because I directly emailed all of them, and then to get like 46 groups show up was very surprising, and I don't know how that
What do
happened.
you think that was?
I don't know.
I think
Like-
it's just we have so much going on in May that I think that there's just a lot. And
Yeah.
maybe doing it a little
Do you
earlier.
think any of it was just that there were so many first-time fringers that don't
Yeah,
know about
But
this?
see, the people, I'm saying the 90 groups or whatever that emailed me directly backstage were like, oh, that sounds great. Yeah, let me know. Okay, it's May 25th or whatever day it was. It's like, okay, cool. And I don't know. But what was good was that, your cast couldn't make it, but you came to represent.
Yeah.
And I think like you were talking about office hours, and I think that like, if you can't go to office hours, get your best, coolest, most outgoing friend to come and just meet some people and pump the shit out of your show and be like, hey man, my best bud's doing the show and it's awesome.
I saw someone do that. They weren't able to make it to any of the office hours because they lived out of town, so they had one of their in-town buddies do it.
Yeah, that's great. Wow.
There's a couple people.
I've had my director come to something I couldn't get to.
That's awesome. Because you were at every office hour, Jim.
Well, the videos were really helpful for me to be exposed to shows that I couldn't make.
Exactly.
Like I'm forged. I'm forgetting the Yeah, that was like, I so badly wanted to see it, and the schedule just never worked. So being able to see snippets of it in the videos was like, well, kind of rubbing my nose in what I didn't get to see. But I was like, that's awesome. Now I have some sort of, I get to see these actors talk about their show since I didn't get a chance to meet them, or so that was really cool.
We'll take 2 more comments about Fringe TV, but then we have to move on to other topics. But I know that both of Matt's here have some comments.
Matt Powers, actually. I don't actually even quite understand what this question or idea is, but I would love the idea of Fringe TV. Fringe TV, just for me, feels like a side thing, which feels like it should be more involved.
100%.
And almost to the point of, and I'm not suggesting how, but almost like everybody writes reviews. Is there a way to be like, hey, let's do some video reviews that are going to be hosted on wherever? Is Fringe TV, is that, because I always think Fringe TV YouTube. I never think Fringe TV HollywoodFringe.org. I think of it as a separate thing. And if there was a way to either have, and again, it's a bandwidth thing. I see all the problems with what I'm mentioning here. But having that kind of, how is Fringe TV more ubiquitous? How is there a way that it can be connected with audience participation, which can then be, hey, I take a look at me doing a review of this thing that I just saw, which might bring somebody else in, which will give somebody something to pull for this. And I don't know what that is.
If you can come up with something that we can grasp onto, I'd like to talk to you about
I'll
that.
have it for you by end of session.
I think there's a way that this can all kind of tie together, like in a multi-platform kind of way. Ideally, like again, this is all pie in the sky. Rely probably on a lot of like interns and volunteers and stuff like that. But like, yeah, after like a show, if there was somebody there for, say, Twitter, and getting people's reactions real quick. And keep it almost like a live thing. So if you're following along, like, I gotta go see that show, but like having that thing and then have them kind of mirror that.
Well, yeah.
We'll just take Matt's question, and then, I'm sorry, we do have to keep moving through our other topics.
Yeah, and I actually had a few. It's going a little quick. I just had a few, but with the film, with the Fringe TV, it was 2 things. First of all, the Matt Richter's, and there was actually a show, Skip It, See It, Chance It, was actually originally with Cindy Marie Jenkins. She got a team together, and they would host once a week video sessions where they do reviews. But it was a bandwidth. Like Fringe was doing their own Fringe TV. This group came together and did that. It was somebody doing that. Basically, the See It, Skip It, that's now just Twitter, was a video feed. The feedback and comment I heard, and kind of what Jonathan mentioned and others, of using it afterwards as a way to point people to see your information. People have mentioned, this may be part of the workflow too, or amount bandwidth, is getting trailers or little bits of shows out earlier than maybe you can put together. That the backstage and all that's wonderful, but it's coming a week or 2 weeks into Fringe. If people could post, and we did it with the trailer, I mean, there's the Fringe trailer, I think it was through Better Lemons or something, people could post video clips, and there used to be a trailer award that I gave to Colin Mitchell. And you would get all the trailers, and more people are getting clips up earlier. That if that, again, maybe on Fringe Central, Fringe TV trailers, boom, you're not making them all, you're not covering 20, you could get hundreds. And you would also allow people like Matt and other services to offer the ability to sell those videos and make that available to people.
And sorry, I know we're on time. Real quick though. So the first opening preview weekend, we saw 13 shows because my goal was to try to get those backstage out so you guys could have them as soon as possible. And then when I got them out and told the artists, there it is, promoted, they didn't.
Well, that's bandwidth too. The actors and all that will do it a week before the show. Once Fringe opens, nobody has the bandwidth. So if you can make it a month, and this kind of goes into the office hours, all that, this is nothing new. I've been a fan of doing it as soon as possible. I mean, office hours started, speaking of Colin Mitchell, with Colin Goodale and I and a few people meeting on Wednesdays, and I wish it would be year-round. I know Fringe bandwidth, that's tough, and one of the Facebook groups, the Hollywood Fringe and LA Theater, we're on the Facebook talking about how can we add more social events. So it's not just on Fringe, which I get.
Well, yeah, so we're working on like all of these ideas. Just know that there are ideas about doing
Oh,
more
absolutely.
stuff, and like that
Absolutely.
is something that we're really hoping to expand into. And so we can talk about that later.
Yeah.
But we don't have anything to announce about that or anything like that, but that is something that we're pretty sure will be happening by the end of this year.
What about varying the night so that people that already have the set schedule on Wednesday
So
go?
and kind of going back to the office hours and dining about Fringe being kind of separate and like that's why we have that new series. So hopefully we will have some like diversified nights or like Wednesday nights are office hours. We're going to keep that consistent because it works for so many people. But then we can add these other sort of events for if it doesn't work for you, maybe you're an earlier person, you don't want to be in a late night bar. Maybe that doesn't fit your show marketing. So that is something that we'll be expanding.
Do you mean before or during?
So this year we had 2 Dining About Fringe events. They were both at Eat This, and they're on Thursday nights in May. So we had 2 of them, and hopefully we'll expand them to be a little earlier too. And so like that's definitely something that like I can say we'll try and work to expand.
I would just add with the events and off Wednesdays, like Wednesday said, I totally agree, I love that.
Mm-hmm.
Special events like a scholarship one, prior to scholarship.
We did have one.
Oh, was there one early?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Yeah,
Yeah.
that kind of pre-work, this is for people before they were selected.
Oh,
This
yeah.
is for questions, because I know it's a venue too.
We're
People
also,
come in and like, I'm applying for scholarship.
Oh yeah, we're also thinking about that too.
It's a good
It's actually-
premiere.
Yeah, we are also thinking about doing some sort of workshop. So I want to move on to talking about, sorry, I lost my little agenda. I want to kind of move on to talking about like venues. So did anybody have trouble selecting their venues? Anything, comments on that process of selecting or finding or any problems that we had this year?
And I think coming to like seminars beforehand and really like Matt's, again, like that first one I went to was hugely helpful to me because there were things that even though I've worked in event stuff before and all that, like there was very granular specific stuff that you need to know to make it in Fringe, and it's like, so going through those things and kind of understanding beforehand, I feel like a lot of Fringers, just from the conversations that we have with them in office hours, like I don't feel like they kind of took advantage of the information that was already out there that could have helped them. You know?
Did you guys go to the venue panel about like where all the venues at, and was that helpful?
I didn't go.
Okay, but what is that for those of you that did go? Was that helpful in finding a venue that fit you, or was it more just like messaging people and going?
First time I ever did Fringe, I went to the venues stuff, and I've stuck at the same venue since, so I never needed to go.
Yeah.
If I go now, it's just to talk to other people and see what they're doing. But yeah, it was very useful, and I had no idea. I never put on a play before, and so it worked very nicely for me. I think actually just keep doing it. The sooner we work and get out about that, the better.
Sweet.
I would just say from the venue, and I told you this, but just for the tape, it was awesome this year. It went really well. I know the venues had a good time. I know it was a good full house. And finally, which was a great venue for like, a place for it. And I think maybe working, and it's up to the venues, but again, the constant office hours where venues feel they can go, and there can be more of a presence for venues, and let them know, hey, this is, and not to give away my business secrets, but this is a good way to meet the groups, and maybe Fringe can have helped push some of the venues.
You know what might be helpful at these sort of next years too is going to that venue meeting was great because I was able to put faces to names.
Yeah.
Something as simple as like color coding the labels, like venues wear green, participants wear blue, that kind of thing.
Just a second popped in my head. Years ago, Stacy and Ben, I still remember Stacy and Ben walking around with a video camera taping the video tours of all the venues. For the 10th year, it may be a good time to re-examine that. I know it's more bandwidth, but tours of the spaces where they see who's renting to, or at least a still picture of the venue owner. I know you can have a crew team on the bottom, and I started adding everybody who rents. You at least get a picture of it, but some of the venues, maybe that video could be looked at as a again, I want to throw more work on Nathaniel and all that, but to have a connection with a different venue.
I mean, if it was done in January, that'd be fine.
I think that's what it would be.
Yeah.
You do a bunch, because there's so many new venues like that.
I don't know.
You know.
This feels like it's a meta comment. I'm getting now when you're saying bandwidth, I mean literally time and bandwidth if you're able to produce things. I feel like these things all of them fall into one or two categories, and one is what can you do, and the other side is how many of these things would be things that proactively venues would do,
Yeah.
or we would do if we were prompted to. We'd be really happy to. There was so much. I don't know if I'm sorry that I was late. I don't know how much discussion there was of Fringers Alliance in here, if any. Okay, is a predominantly group of new people whose first Fringer was, and instead of dropping in, which ordinarily everybody else wouldn't feel lost, they just said, let's get a Facebook group together. They ended up being somewhere as where I met Jim and him, and it turned out to be this gigantic networking Facebook page. Half those people were in the audience for my preview. And we all showed up to each other's shows. Those awful shows that all of you guys did. But we were there. We were like, oh my God, this show, I'm there. And anybody had a question with, can you help me format this? Where do I get print cards? Well, meaning, A, that's a great thing to look at, to cultivate year round, that maybe can happen in the Fringe page. But B, how much of that is actually proactive that we could be cultivating with just the tiniest bit of constant awareness. So it wouldn't be added bandwidth.
Like, I'm just assuming the venues who want to shoot those videos, right? Like, ideally, because then they could sell them all year long. Like, why don't they have them all year long?
I think it's more I totally agree with you, by the way.
You know, and it's just us linking to something.
Yeah. Well, I think the independent market fills the. I mean, most venues don't. Some may want to get involved in shooting them, but independent contractors would be, hey, my deal is $75 to shoot your video. I'm going to rent this venue to shoot it. Boom. Like, the market is created, and there is already that with a lot of elements. I mean,
so then it's really more a matter of just kind of poking in a central area
for
where you announce it's available.
Yes.
That's what I mean by, it feels like a lot of this sounds like social media, as opposed to creating a whole website that has to actually have bandwidth.
Right.
A channel feels like a no-brainer. That feels like that's what that Facebook page is. Like, if for a whole Fringe, if everybody does 0.5% of effort, all of a sudden you've got this big thing that encourages you to then, oh wow, maybe I shoot my reviews and I send them to Fringe TV. Since I've got my camera outside there anyway.
Can I ask a question? How many of you guys interacted with the participant packet pretty regularly, or was that something that was just you didn't really look at so much? Did you guys see the participant packet that had where to get all the kind of best practices of years of so we have that on the site. It's just hollywoodfringe.org/press or participant.
So do you mean the pages with the information?
Yeah, so it has it's lots of pages worth of information of what's been gathered over the years of discounts that have been offered to fringers through different companies, sort of like hotspots but a little different. And then also just best practices that have been taken from all of our workshops and venue town halls and anything that has been kind of everything gets put into that, and it's updated every year, but then the previous year's one is consistently up.
Yeah, I remember it, and I needed it this year because I know we changed some things like Friend Central and stuff like that, and that helped me with a couple of things. But yeah, at the very least, I always scan it. So.
Yeah, and getting it out earlier is a little bit too tough, because there's so many details we need to nail into making it accurate for the year. But also the year before has a lot of very useful stuff, and we start mentioning those that. But that has some of the resources in there, and so if you have resources, and especially if you guys have these Facebook pages or things that you want to put on our website, that would be a really good way for you to be able to send that info to support.
Ellen, I actually heard a couple of fringers on some of the office hours going, I've never seen that. And they've had to go and check their spam boxes. So there's got to be some kind of on the
Yeah.
registration, when they register, they say, hey, be sure to check your spam because stuff may end up in there. And,
Well, in
they
that
go back.
regard, you're saying this is all email driven?
No, it's on the website, but we
Okay.
email it to everybody, and then, yeah, that's usually what we email it when it
You
gets
mean
to
the,
the slide.
Hollywood Fringe email?
Mhm.
Okay, I have so many messages that went through unseen or unread because it wasn't until a week later that I found this unread email. So that was a little confusing to me. Maybe not, maybe because it was my first time. but-
They went out on a weekly basis?
They went out, so we have several different types. There's participant emails, which go to only participants, and those are weekly, if not more. And then you have your weekly audience or general, which goes out to your ticket buyers or anybody that's been involved in the Fringe before. And then pretty much, yeah. And then we have had trouble with it being in people's promotional folders or things like that. And unfortunately, because of the amount of people that are being emailed to, that's not really something that we can do, but maybe messaging about hey, make sure that you add us as a contact.
Right.
Because once you add the Fringe as a contact, you won't have that problem anymore. But just because simply using email marketing in the century, it's just a problem that's going to happen.
I think this all goes back to what we were talking about earlier with the website and blog. The participant package, not only is it, well, I think the main thing is the fact that it's through Scribed, and you have to download a PDF that actually is the participation package.
Oh.
So it's not, I think it goes back to the information, like you said, most of it doesn't change. That should be a living, breathing web page where people can go to, not download a packet, but the information, so much of it is the same right now, put it up there, and that people know you're driving them to a site. I think the email / download a PDF a couple weeks before Fringe just loses a lot.
And then can I ask, have you guys interacted with the support portal? So not just the email, but the portal that has a lot of that information?
Yeah, again, it's good, and I've gone through it and used it when I copy and paste to let people know what they need to do. So it's a good source of that information for me to tell them. But I think the sense is people, they can't all go through me, they can't all take my class. They need to be able to go to the site and see the current, here's the living, breathing information that I can click on, a chat room that connects us all together. A lot of the Fringe sites you'll see, they actually have a private password for participants. And you go there and you hit a site that gives them all that information. Like everybody said, the back page, the administration stuff for setting up your discounts and all that, for the venues to do it are awesome. It really works. That's, I think, part of the reasons it's grown so much. But that front end and allowing us to put information, allowing it to be more organic and live, I think is the direction we kind of head, and what we're kind of all approaching.
Yeah, so can I kind of simplify that into a sentence to see if I understand? So you're kind of saying there's a lot of great information that we're providing, but it's very hard to find, and sometimes that gets lost in the shuffle. Because as you guys are saying that, I'm like, oh, we have provided that, but I think that the main reason is that the information is getting lost because there's several different areas.
Like you said, when you use an email system, it's a problem. So drive people to a site where all the information is. Don't send the information through email and have them try to find it.
Was there an app this year? Because that would be hugely helpful for
What's that?
updates and stuff.
An
We
app.
would like
Oh,
to
and
we
that,
talked about that.
yeah. There wasn't, I mean, the app was great.
we would love to have an app, and we would love to
Yeah.
do things. That's good comments. So we'll keep going.
In that regard, though, my experience this year, even more than last year, was that I spent a majority of my time, 99% of my time, in social media. Because I was reaching out to people I knew and networking with people within Fringe. So it seems like the information's really great. That sounds really great. I would love to have accessed it. It seems like it was available if I had found it, and that reminders are challenging.
Yeah, especially
Except
Twitter.
for through social media platform, they might not be challenging because it seems like they parallel our natural, organic methods of communication now.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we were doing that in an organic way.
Way, so it feels like
Maybe I'm wrong.
on the Fringe Facebook group page, was all of this information in there?
So
in links
we don't,
because,
yeah, we don't have an official group.
Okay.
There's like other official groups that have been started by other people. We don't
Okay.
personally run one, but these are all on our like Facebook feeds, our Twitter feeds, our Instagram. We try and put as much information. But as you're saying, it seems like there's a lot of different channels in order to access it, and just hitting a few of these things a little harder on those channels.
well, actually it feels like we should put them on all of them and then you naturally see which ones
Yeah.
they gravitate towards. But if we're spending a majority of your time grabbing audience members, it's the same. If that's the place, wherever the places you're working in, if that's the place we can access this, then it feels like I would totally be aware of it, and I would totally use it. And I would also tell people in real time who I'm networking with virtually to go and use that, or to grab that or pages if they're, because just that's what we did organically anyway. So it feels like when we say these things, I'm like, oh yeah, I would, if it was a page, Facebook page, I'd be working that all day.
Yeah, I mean, it's relying on Facebook for anything is always problematic, though, just because the minute anything changes over there, your feed gets screwed up. But
Well, there are links on pages like,
Yeah.
you know, for, what's the word, for documents,
Yeah.
for things like that, for
Yeah.
packages. And you can always, in other groups that I'm in for other things, I always go back to that page if I'm looking for, even in a conversation, people have, you know, the documents that have been uploaded, or photographs or things.
As far as like kind of, we're getting to that time to talk about Fringe Central, and I kind of want to start out by saying like, we love Fringe Central as much as you guys do. And it is a hope and dream for us every year, and this year it didn't work out. But, so let's have a kind of shorter conversation about if you have any ideas about how we can make that happen. You know, we will of course be going through the channels that we've done in the past, finding a space, trying to make it work with what we need to provide. But do you have any things about like our concierge? So our compromise was to do like parties and concierge, and I know that concierge was a little tucked away, and that was a problem for a lot of people. But we'll have a little bit of discussion about that and how that works for you guys, and some ideas for next year.
I'll tell you one of the things that I actually didn't mind about not having a Fringe Central. Not that I dislike Fringe Central, but one of the things that I thought it might get in the way of it, it didn't, is there was so many conversations that were now had with groups of pods of people on the street.
Yeah.
Which was kind of taking the, I'm not saying that that's a better or a worse thing, but in terms of, it didn't slow down community, which was really nice. I think that just says something more positive about the Fringe community than anything else.
Yeah.
Now, it was a little warm, so yeah, Fringe Central would have of course been better. But I know that's kind of its own thing.
Did anybody go to the concierge space to buy tickets or anything like that?
Once to drop
I
off.
heard about it, but I didn't. I heard about halfway in, and I didn't go.
I think that, well,
So I didn't know exactly where the concierge was until like the preview weekend. I didn't have a pen or something. I was like, where do I get it? And that's when I found out where it was. So I think as long as it's more advertised, I think that might work. I just think it was a little buried information, which I know we've talked about many times, so I'm not going to get into that. But with Fringe Central, this is my third Fringe. Last year I did Fringe Central, I did sponsored drink, and that led to our first sold-out show. Everyone took everything. This year, barely anyone saw, I did the sponsored drink again for Black Bulb, barely anyone went to our drink, at least as far as I can tell based on like how many postcards we're missing. But we sold way more tickets than I did last year. So something still is working. I mean, we still like, you know, Sin Central is important, I'm sure, in like kind of a cultural aspect. And I know it's not fair to judge my experience based on what everyone else's experience, but I don't think it's as necessary. I heard some people kind of freaking out, like there's no Fringe Central, but people went to the Plunge, they went to the 3 clubs, you know.
And we did have these hotspots. Did you guys take advantage of those hotspot discounts
Yes.
at those spaces?
Yes.
So there's that, Black, and
I would say that taco truck ended up becoming more Fringe.
Basically,
that was like indispensable
it
because
always
you
is.
only have like 10 minutes to grab something.
That kind of is Fringe Central.
It's
When
always
there was Fringe Central.
It should be.
I just wanted to say one thing with hotspots, that, and I just to preference too, I'm of the camp that, well, I think Fringe Central is great and a good part of Fringe and definitely part of our culture. I was excited, like Matt Ritchie said, to see how, and kind of like Jonathan said, life will survive, and people talked on the streets, and people found Facebook. I mean, certain things grew because it wasn't a Fringe Central. Should we have some place to meet? I think so. It does seem like there's a call. Does it need to be a bar and a whole big complicated thing? Absolutely not. There's plenty of bars up there. Just some place to kind of hang out with it.
Did you guys come to our parties?
I'm sorry, I did kind of trail. Hotspots though, because one of the things we did with the asylum was try to push hotspots because some of our venues are farther out. And there was some, I think more, and I know some of this was a timing thing, but I don't want this to go away if Fringe Central comes back, but I think even another step for hotspots to get restaurants in, maybe some event at some of these new ones, bars, restaurants. I'm thinking places kind of farther, like Actors Company's kind of farther out, but there's a lot of great restaurants there, and bars, they need one. McCadden, I tried to do one, and Stephanie Fury. More support for me to be able to help. And listen, part of this is my bandwidth, and Lori's been great when I could actually make it happen.
So just like more events
More
here.
I don't, like what Matt was saying, there was some really good things about Fringe Central. For example, with no Fringe Central, the staff usually sees some shows, but I felt this year there was much more of a presence with Fringe staff going to see shows. In part because I think there wasn't a main central for them to be. And I thought that was wonderful, and I did hear compliments about that. And so if Fringe Central comes back, I don't want that push.
I saw that shows, unfortunately, yeah.
Yeah, and it's just, again, not to, and to find Fringe Central, if I can add, I think this goes to the community and bigger things that everybody's talking about, and I've already talked to Con and Fringe staff about this. This is really an opportunity, since everybody had an issue with no Fringe Central, to find a Fringe Central. Like somebody knows somebody who has some lot or a building that they can get a cheap deal where they can sell water. And instead of like 7 or 8 of us going around doing it, put some hundreds, get these office hours going. Hey, we need a Fringe Central. Who knows somebody that knows somebody? So it goes back to the community. We'll find our way if there's guidance of where we should put our focus.
Okay. Let us know. Did you guys go to our parties that were there in place, and did you guys have any comments about spaces or timing or anything like that?
I love the opening party. That was the best.
Oh, the best one yet.
And then there was food in the back, which was the best thing to you guys. Not all the time we want to be drinking. I myself, I'm not a drinker, but I became a little bit of an alcoholic during the festival. And I wish there was just time to talk to people instead of just yelling at people like in 3 clubs. I was like, I cannot hear you. Can you please go on the sidewalk and talk? Because there was no way to communicate. Black, for instance, was great because you can really listen to the other person. Parties are awesome, but we really want to network, and so it was hard for me, it's hard to hear people in a club or in a party, but the party was awesome too, so I have both. I'm conflicted.
So more space to like have a quieter conversation within.
Yeah, like HFF18 was great because you have in the back you have the food truck.
Yeah, we would do something like that.
That was
all the time if
fantastic.
we could. Yeah.
And the venue was great.
Yeah, Black was a great venue in terms of being able to hear people. Like I love 3 clubs, but it get very hot and it's very cramped. It's not really conducive to that big of a crowd. But my only issue with Black was that they often open much later than everybody else.
And
so the group and frankly like the party has already started somewhere else. So like trying to peel people away to go down that end was, so I feel like that's on them. Like they don't open till later.
You're including like office hours in the party's discussion?
Yeah, we talked a little bit, but yeah, let's talk about it.
Because I think they're obviously great, and if they were continuously going, they would be great. And it goes into the concept of Fringe Central. I don't know if necessarily the question is whether to have it or not. The question is more about, I think it should definitely happen. The question is just about alerting people that it exists. I think that as a result of it not existing, a bunch of
happen, but then they would just double if there was one. And it was communicated, and we found a way to communicate that while that's there, I certainly would have stopped by to pick up a pin or stuff like that if I had known, and would have been able to communicate that to other people. So it's definitely valuable. But again, it feels like this comes back again to just reinforcement. The ideas seem all good, just what are the easiest ways, the organic ways that we would be reinforcing these things? Especially in my second year, I know that there was a lot more congregation amongst people who had already been through a Fringe.
Right.
But I bet you dollars to donuts, there's a lot of one-timers here who would have completely different answers to these questions because there was no Fringe Central.
And I will remind you guys that the messaging for like where things were, like although it was late, that was just because of the way that this year kind of flowed.
Oh,
you know,
yeah.
so and like I think that's a really good point to like have it be earlier, but it's also just kind of dependent on all of the other factors that come into it.
And let me preface everything that I said by the fact that I think one of the reasons these things have become more vital is because there's been so much growth.
Yeah.
So all of a sudden it necessitates an organization. Before it was like, we were here for a month with our friends. So, you know, you weren't even considering these things, but now there's so many seeds that have been planted, so many opportunities there to actually harness information. And a social page would explode now as opposed to just sitting there, as the Fringe page kind of does. We went there and we went to other places, but it's only, I don't know that there's anything to even have to qualify for other than saying, wow, you guys did a great job. Because you built this gigantic thing that now we talk about how we navigate the traffic as opposed to there not being any traffic.
I know that we'll be here then here.
Yeah, the hotspots actually for me work very well. I mean, obviously, you know, Fringe Central, I'll leave that to powers that be, what they want to do with it. But the hotspots got me in very different areas. Kind of what Matt Quinn is talking about. You know, the Denley Arts Center was a great place to go because even though the parking sometimes could be a little difficult, it was usually a very quiet place. It was great for stuff like the scholarship presentations, the pick of the Fringe. It was someplace I could kind of sit down. It was quiet. Then I usually try to schedule something around Studio Sage afterwards or beforehand. So it's good, you know, and if we could get something maybe near Stephanie Fury or someplace near Actors Company, because that helps people. You know, there were days I'm like, okay, I'm going to the Complex and the Broadwater and maybe 3 clubs in the Lounge, and I just kept going there. And of course I found myself in the Plunge or Black or 3 clubs during those days, or maybe the Hudson. So just, I think embracing more of our hotspots and making them more clear what the hotspots are and where they're located and what theaters are located to. Like here are your theaters and here's what hotspots they're close to.
Yeah.
I think we're going to get bigger and bigger. In 2 years we've doubled size. So I think the more places we have, actually the better for us in the long run.
I'm going to take Matt and then Matt.
Matt. The Matt's got it. This goes to concierge, this goes to awareness of parties, events, and all that. I think it was really highlight because concierge, without a Fringe Central and concierge in the back, and this has come up on a lot of times, and I know there's some logistics, but where there's a will, with the bigger, larger Fringe, yes, the Fringe Central, but a structure that can encapsulate all these different venues. And what I'm trying to get at is, instead of one concierge, having a Fringe volunteer person at Family Arts, one at Actors Company, one at Plunge or something, because every year, every venue would tell you we are inundated with people going, where do I get my button? And it's either people from renting from us or people we see on the street. That first preview week, and this year, I can't remember if they sold them at Thymely, but the big change this year that we're definitely going to push for next year is Thymely starting earlier to allow the cabaret to begin prior to Fringe opening. That never happened before until this year. So if that attitude of starting things earlier and a Fringe volunteer or venue staff can sell a button and have a structure where people know, there's a calendar there at each of these spaces. What's coming up? Oh, you get your button and here's the calendar. At one point there were these great screens, like now they're super, you know, the LCD monitor that just had what's coming up, what shows are coming up. And if it's not just at Fringe Central, it's too big just for one spot. divided up between these to create a structure for that.
Were you guys aware that there were buttons available at office hours? Anybody?
At office hours,
Yeah.
no.
People did ask, and I learned about it.
Okay.
I found it real late near the end, because that's how I got my button. And those buttons aren't necessarily like, those bartenders, no, don't screw around, they won't.
Yeah.
Yeah, you
That's
have
how
to-
It's valuable. You've made it valuable. And so now, again, it's all a thing of it's reached a certain growth.
Right.
Now it needs to be distributed.
Now it's not the
And I agree with Jonathan said, and we've talked about it, the venues are a big part of this, to be able to do that. And so working to get those out earlier. So, because I still see people who show up to a Fringe show and don't realize they're part of the festival.
Yep.
And we try to do our curtain speech. I know a lot of the main venues do a curtain speech to point it out. But having a button place, having them in different spaces just sells it that there's something more.
So I'm gonna take Nat and then Lauren and then you, and then we're gonna move to a new topic. But let's see that.
Can you know what the new topic is? I don't want
We're
to,
gonna
no, I don't want to jump on, because mine is.
I was
it's
gonna talk about awards and
Right,
not
right.
and post-Fringe.
Okay, this is tangential, so
Okay.
if this starts to go off,
Sure.
pull me back.
Yeah.
I do this thing where I'm constantly on the Fringe page going, what's it that looks cool, what's that looks cool, and I do like a whole Excel sheet and whatever. I'm crazy, I have problems. But that being said, there's always gonna be something that you're gonna miss, and that you're gonna do this and that you're gonna, and I always wind up meeting people at office hours, here, there, wherever, who have stuff that I'm really interested in, and I think that's great. Connected to that, I'm wondering if there's a way, and Hotspots especially brings this up, there's a lot of great, let's get everybody together. What if there was a, hey, tonight at such and such, it's genre night. Everybody who is doing stuff in this genre, let's get together and talk. Why? Not only because I clearly enjoy that genre and can maybe see your shows, but how are we pushing this to not the Fringe community? If we're doing mystery shows, how can we as a group push this to the mystery bookshop? How can we find clubs? How can we whatever? Which is the kind of stuff that I like to do on my own individual shows, but I think it's a really good way to again use the community to help one another out. It's like, I never would have heard of this thing that I totally love that you're only doing one night. Thank God I knew about that. That kind of thing.
Okay, and everybody's talking about, how wonderful the hotspots and the parties and all that were. But I think that even with that it's still more valuable to have the Fringe Central, because from a lot of the feedback that I was getting from people, being a volunteer, I got a lot of feedback from people who was asking me things, telling me things. And, I found more people that were going to shows and didn't realize that there were 399 other shows to go to, and I talked to them and go, oh, really? I was just going to this friend's show, and then maybe they'll go to the nearby bar after that, and then they go home. And also I found people that were, and myself included on this one actually, because there was no Fringe Central, and there was a particular show you were going to, you went to that show, and then maybe you go home, or you go to something else that's not Fringe related. Whereas when there's a Fringe Central, you go to that show, you go to Fringe Central, you hang around, you hear all of these other people coming in, they're talking about their shows, and Fringe Central is a much bigger marketing tool than having all the divided areas, because that's where a lot, and I know that the office hours do all this, but this is what does it during Fringe itself, is Fringe Central. And I got reports that the cabaret, the attendance was down at cabaret. A lot fewer people were seeing the cabaret shows because it wasn't done at Fringe Central, because people would specifically come to cabaret shows. But when it was at Fringe Central, you get the people that would specifically come for that, but then everybody else was milling around, and they'd see what was going on and pay attention and get information about the show, and oh, that's one I hadn't heard of. And I myself, as a volunteer, knew about a lot fewer shows in advance. Like, I didn't even know about your show until right at the end, and couldn't schedule it in. there were shows that I missed that had I heard about them, which every other year when there's been a Fringe Central, I hear about all this thing early on. And the postcards, that's another example. We had all the postcards over at Concierge. There were all the postcards practically still sitting there at the end over at Concierge. And we have Fringe Central. I was constantly refilling postcards.
I will say, as a first-time Fringer, but having gone to Fringe just as a patron in the past, Fringe Central was the thing that gave me a sense of, oh, Fringe is a community. I'd like to be part of that community. And I did find out about other people's shows, just going there and seeing their posters, seeing their cars. I'm like, that's real cool. I want to do that. And when it's just a bunch of people necessarily just in a bar, you run into people who aren't necessarily just there for Fringe.
I want to take Jonathan and then we can do that and we'll go to the next one. But, and I do want to preface it by saying, yeah, that it's our hope, and it's our hope and something that we'll be working towards.
Again, it sounds like it's traffic issue. You've got, now there's live people who are out there on this street that if they had something to recognize, they would end up staying in this neighborhood. Right. And that corresponds with whatever virtual communication they might have. So all these things can augment each other if they're placed in a chain.
For me, it was easier to stay here and instead of going to the valley and come back.
Oh, God.
Right. I mean, that's great.
100 times. I don't know technically what hotspots were per se.
Right.
So is it that they are the versions of office hours during the Fringe? Is that kind of what that is?
Hotspots were bars and restaurants, as well as other places around that offered a specific discount to Fringers, which we offered as an alternative to coming and drinking at Fringe Central. Because a lot of people were afraid that they weren't going to be able to go out because it's hard to go out all the time in Hollywood. So that's what we offered as an alternative, so we could keep it.
Well, it's a brilliant way to incorporate more businesses into the organization.
And it has been a consistent program even when we do a Fringe Central.
So is there a reference once office hours ends and Fringe begins? Is there a continuing entity that's kind of taking that place?
Parties.
Okay.
Which we have parties this time more than once a week, but in the past it's been once a week, and they have different themes and different things, and like runway where you can advertise your costume.
Right, and I went to a couple of those as well.
So that's kind of that, and then that was what we did.
I would also mention
cabaret.
that if the pins have so much opportunity, then I would suggest some way that the venues have a bunch of them or pay for them to be working, because if they were at the box office for every show, you'd probably sell a bunch. And innately, that says, oh, if I drop $1, I might want to go see another show. Where are those other shows? What is that? And that's another organic way. Because I wouldn't know they existed. I thought they existed only for Fringe. And even though I found it last year from Umbrella Company. And they were like, oh, I'm producing a show. Oh, we get a pin. I didn't even know what it is. And this year I didn't get one until 4 or 5 weeks in because they didn't know where to get one. However, from this conversation, it sounds like that's yet another way that if you connect these 2 or 3 dots, all of a sudden there's an impetus for a stranger to get a pin. And therefore, once you get this pin, why don't I use it? Oh, maybe I use it for a show that I don't know about, or food, if I had a place to go find that show and find out where the food is. So it seems like all these things are there to just kind of be tied together that might not cost anything.
Just final thing, just to echo the point of, again, what we're all kind of saying, if I don't want to throw away when we bring, if there is a Fringe Central back, yes, the postcards and all that were great, but those postcard racks and all that should be in all the venues and supported. The buttons should be sold at all. It should be resonating everywhere. I don't want Fringe Central to come back and all goes, oh, everything's about Fringe Central. It's got to keep it on the sidewalk. It's got to keep these other venues having these resources that is at Fringe Central. Likewise, and this is actually something you may not be aware, but some things actually changed because of No Fringe Central. Normally, the venues would host parties that preview week, which came out of realizing that nobody had a place for giving out postcards during the first week. Hey, they need a place. The venues need to step up. And I know Monica, Martin, who heads them, we're getting together to have a big talk. Every year, the venues themselves, we used to do it a lot more. We haven't. There used to be more of a shared element of things, like throwing parties, because it can't all be Fringe. One thing I would toss out there, just as a quick little sideway, has it ever been considered maybe to do office hours during Fringe? Just to have a Wednesday, just a thing that used to be Wednesdays were always the parties. See, that changed this year's too. And while I think it's important that it does pop around, like having Book Family, I think it was great we had some events there, but they should be everywhere with a clear way of people to find them. And for venues to know, and I know, again, a lot of this came last minute, Ben did set up a way that venues could host a party. Like, the structure's there, but we didn't find out about till last minute.
And
so again, once they can be used for that, but venues need to step up.
And I think that all of these ideas are things that can be implemented, and it just kind of depends on how the cookie crumbles next year, which is kind of exciting that we have all these ideas for all the different avenues that it could go. So I want to talk really quick about awards and then open it up to anything else because we want to get out of here as soon as possible. I mean, not as soon as possible. I want all night, man. I want all the positive and amazing and negative feedback, all of it. But any comments about awards, like our award ceremony specifically, how fast it was, how boring it was, how exciting it was, our sponsored award selection or awareness of how to apply for those things, and obviously concourse.
Why is bribery not accepted at this time?
You know, we try to be a moral festival.
Have you seen some of the shows?
This ain't the whole fun for us.
Well, a comment I had is, I wasn't even mentioned in the Encore Awards. I was really, really ticked off because we were selected to be the Encore Producer Award, whatever, and there was a time where we were skipped and never mentioned. And it was kind of disappointing because all my cast was there. We're all expected to be called and, stand up and whatever, bow or whatever you want to do. We were not even mentioned. And not only that, but also having the people that won the awards only have 2 words to say is kind of like,
well, I mean,
funny.
on the other hand of it, you can have a 5-hour.
Okay, I know you have to have it in a certain, slot, but it's kind of disrespectful that people that work so hard can only say 2 things about, or 2 words, and sometimes you can just say F off or whatever. It was funny, but it's like, okay. I don't know, it was just, to me, it didn't seem like it was taken seriously.
Well, I had Matt over here, and then Matt, and then Matt.
Oh,
so,
Yeah,
I'm the one who's asking.
No, you're not saying that.
He said things.
You were like you missed earlier.
All right.
First of all, to clarify the Encore part, as of 2 years ago, no name gets mentioned for the Encores. Nobody's name gets mentioned.
We have the slides for each winner.
I got it. So what happened this year that was different, because you weren't the only one at Actors Company. What happened this year, Lauren talked, we had a conversation about it, is what we did last year, we did again this year, was to have slides. So each venue person goes up and makes their little speech, and then a slide goes up. What happened this year is, last year, all the venues of people who weren't there, like Lauren and Hudson and those shows, they would have all of their shows on one slide. And right before I gave the asylum, I would mention that all the names would go up, everybody was asked to stand up and take a bow. But unfortunately, the slides were broken up, so there were 5 or 6 individual slides. So your slide went up, but it wasn't up there for a while because they were cycling through 5 slides. So no names get mentioned, and the slide was up, but it wasn't up there long enough. I've already spoken with Dave, all the powers that be, we know what's wrong. Every year we finesse it a bit. So that's what happened with the Encore. And I wish that every name could be said, all the venues do, but I have to honor the fact that it's a very long award anyway. And besides the wish of having every show mentioned, there's no way you could have a bunch of actors give a speech other than 2 words. It's the only way this festival, the awards, could be under 2 hours. So I was thinking, if you want to give a speech, do it on a video, put something out afterwards. If you have people to thank, do a write-up. A lot of people do that on Facebook, but I always tell groups at Asylum, you've got to remember there are, another 20 shows in your space. And so while it's nice if we all can make a speech, there are a lot of awards, which is great. There's a lot of people going home with awards. They get their recognition in this beautiful, I love the award ceremony. Darren Lee came from New York, just thought it was the greatest thing. And he actually liked the 2 words for that reason. So I understand, that need of like, hey, we got you, we love you. Yeah, exactly. But, do it at home. Hey, when you're drunk. Hey, I want to thank everyone.
Did everybody see the awards blog posts and things like that afterwards? So that continuing the awards and everything. And then I know that there's comments from the Mats and from Jonathan, and I think also Lauren. No, not Lauren.
And I also think there's too many Mats in this meeting.
Wait till you see next year.
Oh, we got plans.
There should be a match.
Legitimately, there are Matt plans.
Start your own fringe.
Rise of the Mats.
Quinn kind of.
I already let it out.
Kind of said this, but one of the things.
It should be right here.
One of the
The matchup.
Yeah. One of the things, and Quinn kind of mentioned this, but one of the things about kind of the 2-word nature of this that I always really liked is some of this is just a personal thing about taking awards seriously, and I feel like there's everybody wins when you're at Fringe mentality. And it's not about making the awards this okay, now it's the awards time. It's more like, let's get together for a big party and hand some stuff out. It's kind of the vibe that I've always gotten, which is why they've made it 2 words. It's goofy. It's kind of a goofy little thing, rather than trying to make it this thing that I feel like is the opposite of what Fringe is. I think is what happened. That's kind of how I take it. It's less of a disrespect of the artists and more of a respect for everybody who was nominated and not nominated. We get a chance to just be like, woohoo! And we love everybody in that. And it's part of a show.
Oh, the Max, there's something saying like they're taking a lot of the stuff I was going to say. But I do agree. I remember 2 years ago into the Fringe, it was just, this award ceremony was unbearably long. And it took just too long. Yeah. And this year was the fastest. They had a great opening number. I thought the award show was so good this year. And it worked really well. As Pride Girl was also nominated, it probably helped me feel a little good about it, but I don't know.
It was too long.
But it was really fun. I think the 2 thing is fun. And hey, look, we don't have any, we're not cutting people's awards in commercial breaks. So I think so far we're doing pretty well with how everyone is being honored. I will say one thing about the awards process. I think voting needs to open a little earlier. There were a lot of people who talked to me who said, I wanted to vote, not even necessarily for mine, just for others, I want to vote for this. And I didn't even know, by the time I realized what was happening, polls were closed. So I think maybe even just a day might make a difference, because I think, I understand the mentality behind it, the logic. You want to get it once really all the shows are closed or closing. But at that point, most people, if they know I'm going to see a few more shows that are nominated, they're going to wait. And the other folks who are just kind of ready to go might do it, because I think some people missed out on voting because of that.
Jonathan, Jim, yeah.
That's so interesting. The eligibility for voting is that you've seen the show?
There's lots of criteria. So
Okay.
there's if you've seen a show, if you're in a show, there's if you've written reviews.
Which I imagine precludes
Yeah.
that you've seen the show.
It's basically
Although lots of records.
yeah. So it's basically open to a lot
Okay,
of people.
but the basics is that if you've been in the house. So as soon as you said
Or
that,
about it.
it's I totally get that. I go to Sundance every year. Every screening, there's a little piece of paper. And it's basically for their awards. And they have them at every screening. And it's just a little piece of paper that says, would you vote for this? And it goes into a particular box. And then they just tally that box at the end. I don't know what would have to be tailored, but it then becomes a no-brainer, because I would imagine 80% of the people that came to my show, even if I contacted them, might not be aware, again, an awareness of participation.
Well, that's another thing that we can kind of put into maybe one of the workshops this year is like, you can maybe tell your audience to do that if you're doing a show. Maybe you can include that as a part of it that way. I mean, I think that our structure is pretty, like there is some flexibility, but I think that like changing it to being like a paper voting system probably wouldn't be something that would change. But
Actually, the main point of that is actually goes to everything else, is awareness of something going on
Right.
and needing to be reinforced a number of times of that thing going on. The only thing, because I agree, and I think the one show was great, and I think 2 words is completely appropriate, because of the structure of Fringe and the energy within Fringe. With that said, the only thing I would say is that now I'm going to guess there's a whole half that is still outside. Participating, people are coming in first time or whatever, who are still outside, because there was a core group of people that created this thing, that spent 7 or 8 years putting up shows and creating this thing. They still probably have 80% of the awareness of within the awards community. And that anything that can be done on a social level to raise awareness of the other 350 shows that didn't even come close to scratching that edge. I don't think that's a choice. I think, again, it's an opportunity that came from the growth of all this. Anything that raises awareness of those other shows, by definition, will only enhance exponentially the awards and make everybody feel included without some effort to do that.
would a good way of doing this, did anybody feel like they didn't hear about like the process of awards during our workshops and town halls? Would it be better if we more emphasized that in these?
What if that would change the kind of what the workshop should be like? I do like to somebody made the point earlier about like, it's not, Fringe isn't really about the awards and all that. I definitely think we should keep the online voting, because just coming from a town that's got like crooked voting history, you don't want to get into like paper. And also, frankly, there's just enough paper being shoved around to everybody as is. I think it would keep it a little easier. I think maybe, again, like if there was an app, if there was a cleaner way in the site to find these things, like if you could vote from your app, like I would also do one last thing for voting.
You can vote from your email. So I mean, but like I understand what you're saying, making it more.
And then one last thing in relation to voting and all that is, I didn't get to see some shows until like that. What is it, Saturday or Sunday or whatever? And so they were kind of screwed because I love that person's show, but I just voted.
Yeah, and some of that we can't change, but some of that, like making sure the messaging gets across on like the process and how people can promote.
Well, there's a good question about that. And I would imagine that would be how many votes were actually captured versus how many people actually participate. I think that gives you an answer.
Well, it's also, just so we're clear, it's not you see one show and you get a vote. Right. It's multiple shows and it's multiple reviews. So it's not just like I saw one show and now I get to vote on the thing. So there's a calculus to how many, and that changes every year.
So the question would still be then, even within that criteria, because I, again, wasn't aware of that criteria, I'm sure it's printed somewhere.
Yeah. There's a lot of, look, Fringe has a ton of information. We have it all there. It's just a matter of a lot of people, it's hard to track.
As a marketer, the rule is like everybody's got to see things 3 times
yes.
before you recognize it the first time. So it's the only idea, there's only the idea of it, but I would be curious, I imagine, to know, unless everybody calculates this already, how many votes were tallied
versus how many eligibilities are.
Mhm.
And that will give you an automatic answer as opposed to what option. It probably is just helping people to make that decision. I know that audience members have about 5 seconds to get all the messages that are coming from the person who is telling them right before they run out of the theater to go and do 5 things that they will never remember to do. So, and that's just human beings. Like by the time you get to an email, we're done.
Yeah.
But any opportunity to do that I think in a social way, where you're already doing 3 or 4 things already, where you get a reinforcer of that while you're making a reservation for something, would probably enhance the massive amount of what I think is, there's a tremendous amount of interest that by the time it gets to take an action, we're done.
Just 2 quick things. These were things that I, as part of Asylum, do with our shows, but I think they are important that should be shared for all Fringe shows. One is, and this goes to a centralized information, I keep every year the website for the sponsored awards. It's hollywoodfringe.org-promote-award. There's no link on the website that goes to that. And that should be a centralized, I mean, basically, I send out an email with that link. There's no direct portal that I am aware of that says the award. It gets sent out to an email.
In the sponsored or blog post, right?
What's that?
The sponsored or blog
The
post.
sponsored award, it's not just a blog post, there's a website
Yeah, but
that
the website.
points to, not the blog post website, it points to a list of all the different sponsored awards.
Right, but then like on our blog post. when we-
Right, it's on the blog, but this goes to having it on the splash page where people can go to a website and not find it. So just one of those important pieces. The other one, and I did this as kind of during our Asylum meetups, and I actually called Ben on this, and Ben commented at it, and you kind of actually mentioned it too, and Jonathan, is I was telling groups, and I couldn't get an actual number from Ben, because I understand it's an algorithm and all that, but I actually think it should be a promotion for people to know that if you see 5 shows, you're going to get to vote. And I think that's something that should actually be promoted by people because it helps everyone. And there isn't a web page out there that says specifically how many numbers or what. And it's something that should really be pushed. I know a piece of paper in every place is tough, but if people know when they get a ticket, see 5 shows and you get a vote, that people love that in this town. This is Oscar town. They want to vote. Make them part of it. Get them part of the community. And letting that information be shared instead of us just doing an Asylum, I think is really a way for people to use that. It helps everyone.
I think we should put it on the programs too, because
Yeah.
put it on the programs, or like I saw a lot of shows that at the end of the show, they were like, anybody else is a Fringer, please stand up and
Yeah.
tell us your venue, tell us your shows, and don't forget to vote on hollywoodfringe.org.
In fact, something with that, in terms of bringing people to the Scholastic information, during one of our Asylum meetups, somebody brought up, and they may be kind of antiquated, but that QRC code reader with that little thing, and somebody goes, Fringe should just have one up there, that anybody, like the branding, which is great, where people can go get their logos, Here's a QRC code for you to add on to it. Here's information that you should copy and paste and put in your program to explain the rules. Like have that information up, not as a participation guide, but as a website. Like that branding page could be expanded to include, here are all the ways that you can, all the things you can print in your program to guide people to vote, to let them know where Fringe Central is. Here's the page where if you want to find parties, use us, like we're echoing too, and Jonathan said in the beginning, we understand there's a bandwidth for you guys. So utilizing giving that information for us to share and pass out, we will find a way, we will get it out there.
So it sounds kind of like more access to being able to promote the Fringe support portal, because the support portal has most of the information we've been talking about, and so making sure that all the information is available, and then making sure that it's.
I think there's the how-to handbook guide, which is the FAQ, which is the support portal, but there's also like on your page where you get news, hotspots, like there's the more active
that's the
day in,
support
day
portal.
out. Well, support portal, it's like a book.
Yeah.
It's broken down by category. For
You mean,
researching.
okay, so on the home page where we have our events, I mean, events is something we should probably add, which I don't think we have on there.
Next-
But like scholarship shows or whatever else, a button that you can click on.
Right. Here's
So it's just
or
basically
better-
adding to those programs that we have.
Yeah, or that here's, you know,
Peaceful.
like you go to Yahoo page and it's like, next upcoming office hours, Wednesday at 3 o'clock. Information on the parties coming up, go here. So all that information is on a live feed. And I know some of that's there. I mean, the schedule element, which I love, going to the website, being able to look at show and all, I love that. That could be blasted to TV shows in each venue where people can access it as a live feed. All this is there, like Tom said, it's so much information.
The splash page, our homepage does have those splash buttons, and a lot of the things that you've asked for are actually on there, like the events. If you look for hotspots, there's usually a hotspot thing on the splash page. You click on it, it takes you
I
to the
think
hotspot.
the thing is, you've got this video moving across with
Right.
big color
Yeah.
pictures and those change.
Mhm.
I'm saying much like the venue board has a dashboard,
Yeah.
it's like a participant dashboard where all this, and it could be for the audience too, it could be a more.
Well, I mean, what that would be our what was in the old website was our programs, kind of like there's like a hotspot link, or there was a link to, I think we still have it, free and pay what you can shows, like those kind of, like, basically you're looking for a button on the homepage that describes it, and then just you click on it and it takes you there.
Yeah,
I think actually what you're saying is that you want it to, like, there's all of this information that's kind of like participant packet oriented that should just be a little bit more accessible from the homepage as participant.
Yeah.
Like if you're a participant and you're like, I want
You
to
go
see
here.
all of the
Exactly.
things that we put into the participant packet,
Yeah.
which is like anything you need to know as a participant, more accessible as one.
Not a download PDF, but a web page where you could put information and an audience one. Because the participant, you want the audience to go to the parties too. You want the audience to go to these. You want the audience to have access to discount codes. I mean, right now it's all through Twitter. Again, Asylum, we do one for ourselves. I know you can't do a pass unless each venue, again, started a $5 pass. But you could have, hey audience, here's a discount page. Now, I know this goes to the devaluation of fringe shows, which I get, and has always been a problem with fringe. But if there is some way of driving people in the public to know that there are more shows in fringe, there's a way to access it easily with tickets, to get a button in one place, I think that would be huge.
Forgive me if you guys have tried this in the past and it didn't work, or if I missed it, but like, even, and I know it's giving up a piece of real estate that you could sell an ad on, but even if it was like a banner or something across the top, it was clearly a fringe thing, not just something you're seeing an ad, but it would be essentially an ad refreshed every day with something that you would click on to go and see updates. So today's like 5 things you need to know today, like here's where to get your get your button, all that kind of thing. So that, because I just, like, the most time I spent on the fringe site, frankly, was going to my own page to take care of things on there.
Yeah.
And if it was sitting right in front of me every minute, it would remind me to go and do it, and like it could change out every day to be something else. And I know that you're losing a spot where you could sell an ad, but I think what you gain from that is going to be more of that interactivity that I guess is what we're hearing people need.
Yeah. Okay.
I think that's a matter of site navigation. It sounds like you have a tremendous amount of information that's in places that now you just need to figure out how to navigate a user experience through. Because the links that I had saved were to my own page. And when I needed to find something, I dug around to find it, but I didn't know that even those things were alive. I definitely would have taken advantage of them in the same way that with any other business, with any other thing, if I'm prompted to do it.
Speaking of the website, one thing that has been inconsistent is being able to search on the name of a performer or a producer or a director or something like that, because people know of people that are in shows, maybe, or they saw them last year and they want to find out what they're doing this year or something like that.
Well, I think you can search by the name of whoever, and then you can find their user profile, then you can see all the projects they're involved in.
But you can't always do that.
You can,
There are instances where I've put in the person's name. I know that they were in a show last year. I put in the name and they don't come up.
so when you do a search on the website, the first search is only for projects, but then as soon as that search comes up, there's a button for users. So
But I think what she's saying is that, well, I think what you're referring to is when people aren't added by that producer. So sometimes people might be involved in a project, but if they weren't added by the producer to be on that splash page.
No. Last year, I think you couldn't do it at all. This year, it was inconsistent. If you put in somebody's name, right when you first go to the page and you have that search bar, that little search space, and you put in somebody's name, and they're in there. If you go to their show, if you know them what show they're in, you can go to the show. You see them listed. You can go to their page. But when you put their name in, you cannot necessarily go to their page.
I will look into that because that's not something that I
sometimes
ever.
it works and sometimes it doesn't. It's very frustrating because
I do it a lot because I actually look up all of our friends to be on our workshops, and that's how I contact you all is through the Fringe site. And I haven't particularly had a problem with that, but I think that we can look into that.
Lauren, do you remember the person you were trying to?
no, because I've done it with a lot of different people.
I think-
And a lot of times I have to find out. Remember what show they were in last year and look up that show and then go get to them by.
I think the problem Lauren's having is that it's very sensitive with an exact match.
Very
search.
sensitive.
I think that's the problem.
It's not like the result
That's
when
not it, no.
Was I wrong, really?
No, because
That
I
is
put
it.
in the exact
Oh,
name.
okay.
It definitely is a problem that I can.
Like sometimes it's like, oh, I put John, but it's spelled like Jon, and I
Right.
JHN, and that's.
Right.
So that's
Well,
not-
I mean, I just did a search for Matt Quinn, so it didn't pull up Matt Quinn under users because his username is actually Matthew Quinn.
Right.
But what it did show up was projects that Matt has produced because he's listed as Matt Quinn in there. So it does take the exact name, and if your name is not in the well, no, not in the project itself,
Right.
then you have to click on users, and that I've had the same issue. Like I was like, this person should be popping up, but then once I click on users, then they pop up.
And then another thing is that sometimes you won't be associated with that
Correct.
project if your producer has not
Right.
listed you as associated
Oh,
with
that I
that
know, but
project.
if you were in something last year, you should still come up.
Yes, you should, but if you, like I said, if it's usually, it won't, if it doesn't pop up on that first page, because the first page is always projects. Then there's links for, it was users, and then there was, what was it, like, posts or
And
something like that.
articles.
Articles,
and,
right.
yeah. And
So you have, it's a two-step process if you're looking for a user.
And I would say with anything like this, just having gone through it and finding problems, bugs exist. Next time you do it and you find a name that doesn't do it, send it to support.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's the only way they can problem solve it. But I have seen, I know what you do.
Can you do an asterisk when you're doing a search?
No,
Oh, that's
I
a good
don't.
question. Like, I don't know what the search,
I don't think
I
our
don't
search
know.
function currently has that, but that's it.
Okay.
it's down to that kind of stuff.
Yeah, it's interesting. So if I put Nathan Beaver, it won't pop up. But if I just put Beaver, it will. Strange.
So since we're getting super close to kind of nearing the end, I want to hear any more general questions, comments, concerns.
Not a question, but definitely you need the central, you do, because I've been here for at least 5 years, and this year I really didn't know what shows were going on until someone told me. It's really by word of mouth. Unfortunately, I don't have a lot of time to spend on a website, so it would be in person where I hear something. And it's true that if I would see a show, if I can hang out somewhere, and then I can go like all day Saturday. But if I have to go back and forth to different places, that makes it tougher.
One other thing that came up, I heard from people, and it's kind of to the Ben Hill, hey Ben, as you're going through this. Somebody brought up, and I can see it being more of a problem down the line, is you've got everybody posting, telling people to go to Hollywood Fringe to write the reviews. This year, Better Lemons, God love them,
Yes.
are really growing,
Yeah.
but they have their own reviews. Now, I actually, previous life to theater, I actually did data programming and all that, and I know there are ways for these two entities to be able to send information back and forth and have a shared review. So if it goes up on Better Lemons, it goes up on Hollywood Fringe and vice versa. I think that it's causing people, and this will hurt Fringe, because Better Lemons has an advantage, is Better Lemons is year round. So they are pushing this all year round. Fringe comes up and it's just June. So I hear people go, oh, well, Better Lemons is where we should push them to get the reviews. They have the meter, they're year round. So I think it behooves Ben to talk to the team, you know, NC and team over at Better Lemons and get, it's not huge. I mean, I know it's like, Ben, last thing you want to hear is another page site. But this is data being sent back and forth, and once it's set up, I think it will be huge and will help everybody grow.
Well, you do want to get that badge or whatever they give you, Sweet Lemon. I guess it's something you can add on your.
You can add on to it. And Fringe can't review, and Fringe, I mean, they have their reviews, but they can't.
But also, you can always, as participants, add that review to your own.
Absolutely.
Which is usually what a lot of people do that, which is usually a better.
I do it for everybody, but then I'm asking them to take 2-3 actions.
Yeah, and
Whereas
plus the
it's
promotion
very
is
exhausting.
on, you want people going to Better Lemon's site
Right.
to see about Hollywood Fringe. It's
Right.
not just the review. Come on, the review's your brother, sister, and all this
Yeah.
who wrote it.
Yeah,
It's not the review's going to drive people.
No, it's across.
But it's going to be, it's just the visual of it being there, and the cross-marketing. Because Better Lemons really stepped up this year.
And because they got everybody on the street.
They got everybody on the street. They were everywhere.
Would that be a bias though? What about other reviewers?
Yeah, I think that it's also up to the producer to be able to decide what reviews they want on their site and what they want to integrate. And so I think.
Well, I think much
more
like, I mean,
user-based.
I think just like with the Fringe site, you can opt in or out of having your Fringe reviews out there.
Yeah.
I just think, again, part of this is for watching out for Fringe. Is like, it's a benefit for them to be in bed with Better Lemons.
Yeah, on that note, somebody that my day job is working in the movie industry, and Rotten Tomatoes is something that people deal with all the time, and mixed feelings about it, but at the end of the day, the creators and the studios and all that are all chasing that sort of stamp, and Better Lemons is kind of like that. Like for people, the lay people that I was trying to get to come see my show, when they heard about Better Lemons and Sweet Thing, they perked up because they had something that they can connect with for however kind of light it might seem to some, but it's definitely got something there, I think.
This is more of a tech issue, and I've already emailed support about this, but just a general thing. I wonder if anyone else has a problem. My show and several other shows have a problem that when people try to leave a review, you wouldn't let them do it. You went through it, logged out, refreshed the cookies, we tried everything, and it was just all summer long. They couldn't do it. We tried everything, we weren't able to do it. And support, God bless them, they tried really hard to fix the problem, but there were just some people who didn't. I will say that made Better Lemons useful in some ways, because sometimes someone can leave a review on my page like, well, I'll just leave a review on Better
That's
Lemons.
exactly what
And then that was fine. Me personally, I don't push people either way. I'm like, you want to leave a review, that's great. Whether you liked it or hated it, that's fine. But I do think that's just something maybe looking as a bug, kind of what Lauren was talking about with the search feature, that as we continue to grow might become a problem for some people.
Yeah.
What is, I don't know if you have these numbers or not, but I'm very interested to find out if there's a percentage or of people outside of the Fringe community and Fringe community friends who go, oh, it's Hollywood Fringe time. I'm going to check all this stuff out, and I'm going to start going to Hollywood Fringe and doing it.
That's what I'm talking about that.
Yeah.
Essential, because again, I really try to promote people who have no idea what Fringe is. I notice Fringe is, it can be like a bubble. So I try to get people who are not within that little Fringe, know-it-all kind of thing, and try to get them exposed. To bring in audience who will pay for tickets and fill in seats.
Yeah, and we will make some general festival announcements as far as percentages or dollars. Maybe. We have a ticketing announcement, things like that, and that will be coming pretty soon.
It's not like
But
you
that's
guys don't,
interesting.
advertise. I'm seeing the banners.
But that's an interesting
Not like I think
point.
that's an issue. I'm just interested to see if there's more ways that the individual.
Los Angeles is a very tough town to crack in terms of ads or advertising, as I think everyone here understands. So it's been as someone who's been here from the very beginning, just seeing how many more, like just the percentages of how many more people are coming and then come back, I think is encouraging
I think,
every year.
and we're almost at 2 hours, so I think we can like keep it to our last couple comments. Do you want to go, Jonathan, and then
Oh,
Matt?
Matt has hand up, so go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. With that, final comments. I think as a group, like us finding a Fringe Central and the Collective Mind, I think we need to work from the beginning on the Collective Mind of how to get radio and TV to host, to cover in here and have more. I think having events year-round supporting that will help with that, and a central location for it. Or not central location, but more of that, people networking together. And another thing that I think helps us that before and something to be aware after, it may be too late for this year, but it would be great if when the survey or the fine, at some point, an email is sent out that says, please keep us advised of any future shows and productions that you do. I try to do it with Asylum, knowing if people did San Diego Fringe, Edinburgh Fringe, if they had a New York City off-Broadway run, if they played in Pittsburgh, if they played in San Francisco. That should be collected and shown proudly on the Fringe website of, look what, if you premiered at a Hollywood Fringe, you should be telling the Fringe all the great stuff.
There are people right now over in it.
Yeah, there are people in Edinburgh.
Other websites that were groups literally from here that could easily be advertised.
Yeah,
right now.
so I think having that tie-in for, and I think that may be good for me.
Okay.
Okay, super
Shut me
quick.
up.
Are you sure?
Super
Yeah.
quick, I'm indebted to everybody who's worked at the Fringe from the beginning, because I don't think it's hyperbole to say that actually created an opportunity for a theater community, a full, active theater community that's independent from the 4 or 5 major theaters to actually exist in this town. In the 20 years I've been here, I never thought from New York that that was possible because of the disparate elements of the city. So I think it's amazing. I think what started as a bunch of people who had to survive creatively and had to perform creatively has actually, like all of these little seeds, have grown exponentially into what is potentially a monumental opportunity. And the same way that I used to run a marketing company that 3 or 4 years ago, everybody thought Facebook ads were a joke and it would never advertise. Organically, our methods of searching changed. And then all of this, now Facebook is the #1 place for those ads because we go to this area to do things. So it feels like in creating this, recreating this again, we've also created an opportunity now to gather all of this energy and direct it towards full-on legit things. That, as opposed to just creating them out of nowhere, that the force and the energy is actually there, and it just really is kind of needs just to be guided. So I mean, the fact that there are theater producers from New York that should be here all the time. I don't know if before I came here if anybody mentioned dates, but I noticed from the last 2 years that it was a tremendous amount of excitement from outside that was generated for Fringe by June 29th. So I feel like it would probably be a reasonable guess to say there's probably 1,000 people in Los Angeles that wanted to see a show by July 1st, and it was done. And the opportunity, whatever that means calendar-wise, to take a look at that again, as opposed to taking a look at it 3 years ago when there wasn't the same size, there's legit people now who want to just go to theater that heard about this after we closed. And between now and the next year, that could end up actually being 1,000 people that automatically are strangers that would just walk into a shop. And that opportunity didn't exist last year or the year before. And I think just taking a little look at that is profound.
Yeah. Which is really great. And I mean, that's kind of the exciting thing about running a month-long festival is that you kind of, it's like a month and then at the end you're like, oh God, there's so much more that could have been done. And so I think that's kind of, again, both sides of the
Well, it feels
coin.
like it's brand new as opposed to something before or an advent. There's like, I mean, it's large now. And the amount of playwrights that are legit, like that, that's as good as anything I've seen in New York, is astounding. I think there might be better playwrights right now than in New York. And
I think so.
the only thing that I would finish with is in every all of the people that slave to establish this thing, that create material every year, that are part of the awareness of awards and navigation of audiences, how do you take all of this energy now and go, how do I direct some of this energy to the other 300 shows? Because if you just directed a little bit of energy to people who are new in whatever way, just see whatever happens, exponentially their energy would come back and build something like Fringers Alliance, which the critics review, when I went to the critics in Better Lemon's office, 2 of them were on the panel, they asked, who are these Fringe Alliance people?
Yeah.
That was like 3 weeks in. That's an organic thing. That now, if we just look to harness, I feel like if I knew about 10 or 20 shows that I never would have had, I have 350 shows. If I did, I might have seen them. And they probably would be putting in, I mean, exponentially, that's a crap load of energy that will come to volunteer, to support, to help do some of these things, to sit in front of a theater.
Let's discuss it over drinks.
Yeah, I think that what we want to do is take any very last comments and then we'll go on our next
I have a quick question. Are there, you might have discussed this, are there Fringe ambassadors or is it just you guys? I'm just as far as if people just want information, or is that something?
about what
Fringe ambassadors, like during Fringe, maybe there's someone who stands on the corner. Are those the volunteers?
Yeah, so we have a street team that we kind of tried to re-involve this year, going around and doing that. And since we hadn't been doing that for a while, it was a little different. Because we had Central, like we originally had a street team at Central, and then last year we didn't really have a street team, and this year redid that, but because it's not expected, or like it wasn't expected, it wasn't as strong as it could be. So I think kind of making that more of a thing would be great.
I would, if I'd known, I did a little bit for Better Lemons. If I'd known, I totally would have been in on one. I think some of the strangers would have been in. New people, brand new people come in, even saying, okay, got to do one. They would be excited to go and see something.
There would be more traffic to some
There's
shows.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that these are all really, really great ideas, and I think the more that we can make sure that, the way that we can make sure that they're enacted is by coming and still supporting and giving us all these ideas and kind of enacting some of them. Like you said, you guys took it on your own selves to do Fringe Alliance, which is super cool, and that's such a great tool. And
I thought it was
to
a
be
Fringe
able-
group. I thought it came from Fringe when I was.
We have no, Fringe does not have any Facebook.
Yeah, well, but I did everything. My promotions, now all of the tools that you use to create ads and posters and things, I did them all on my phone. And because all of these apps are now developed at such a high level,
Yeah.
the Instagram stories was one of the biggest ways to post reviews or documents that I was at every show. So what I'm just saying is organically, we're all going here.
Yeah.
And you've already posted all the information, you've already created all of it, put it in 3 places and then collect data.
Yeah. It's all there. There's so much there.
Let's go have a drink.
Yeah, let's go.